Okay, we're ready to start. I want to welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. It's probably going to be a long one because I have a lot of discussion items. So I'll call us to order, and I'll have our city clerk, assistant city clerk, give us our roll call.
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
I'm going to have you rise, and we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance and our invocation by David Rathgaber. He's Dr. David Rathgaber, officer of the Vista Masonic Lodge. And we don't have our flags right here, but we have a flag right on the other side of this wall, outdoors, and so we're going to pledge the flag that's out there.
If you would please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation.
Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we wish to begin by giving you all the praise and glory that is so rightfully yours. And we thank you for the opportunity to come together tonight and to work for the betterment of our city. We're so grateful, Father, that we live in a country where it was founded on the principles that as we are all created by you, we are all equal in your sight, and therefore each of us has a right to come and bring our questions, our ideas, our grievances, and discuss them to help build our cities and our country to make it even better than it has been before. And Father, we ask that you help us to remember that each of us is here for the betterment of our city, and that those things we use to divide us are really not important, that each of us are here to serve. And Father, we're so grateful that we have those who have a heart of service and who sit before us and make decisions for our country and for our city. And we ask your blessing upon them, Father, that they may have wisdom and enlightenment and move us forward in the direction that will bring honor to you. And finally, Father, may the decisions that are made tonight and the discussions we have bring blessings to our city and honor to you and to our country. We thank you, Father. Amen.
Amen. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to the Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. And the next thing we'll do is have the approval of our agenda by City Manager Patrick Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes to the agenda this evening.
There are actually no presentations. Usually we have presentations, but there are no presentations scheduled tonight. So the next thing on our agenda will be our consent calendar, and the recommendations on our consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item, oh dear, did I go by that? Oh, our city attorney, I went by our city attorney. Please forgive me. City attorney will bring us out of closed session.
Thank you. The council met in closed session this evening for item CS1 on this evening's closed session agenda. There is no reportable action.
Thank you. Back to the consent calendar. So any member of the public can remove any item by submitting a request to speak card to our clerk secretary. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following adoption of our consent calendar. So with that, I have pulled by the public items C3 and C10. Are there any other items that would like to be pulled by our council?
C4.
Okay, so we're going to pull C4, C3, and C10. Okay, then I would entertain a motion for the balance of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Councilman Rigby, did you have something that you wanted to add?
You already took care of it, but thank you.
Oh, we have to vote.
Oh.
That motion passes with one
No,
no?
that was a yes.
That was a yes. You want to redo it, or just it okay? Do you need to redo it? We don't need to redo it. It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, got it.
Sorry, it must have been a fingernail.
Okay, then our first item will be item C3, which is our treasurer's cash report for the month ended August 31st, 2013. And we have one speaker, Alejandro Sanchez.
City Council members, good evening. I noticed that there is a decrease on cash and investments of over $10 million. I think $10 million out of almost $200 million that you got in your funds, I don't think it makes so much pain. Your investments, a total, disgrace, investments that we have is stuck and not doing nothing, just there for nothing. But one of the things that I wanted to tell you is that the Vista Unified School District is trying to work with the Vista Teachers Association on potential implications for benefits related to healthcare costs in the Affordable Care Act. Something that they're going to discuss very, very soon, and I hope that the city councils can take very close on the Obamacare with your employees. I think it's a time to cut your spending. You're spending so much money, millions and millions of dollars in your health benefits. I like, Kaiser Permanente. I have Kaiser Permanente. I love it. But if you can take a chance and take advantage of the Obamacare, so be it. I'm very pleased with with this bill, and I hope that you can motivate and do something for your employees so they can participate in the program. The city has to participate in the program. Another thing that I wanted to brag, I noticed that always we have some preacher coming in and praying for the city council. Well, I was thinking myself, maybe it's a time to reconsider also not to have preachers that are from Northcoast Church, some that you related to, and they can influence the city council. In particular, I don't like people that are, when you ask him to come forward and they hide, like some of the pastors from Northcoast Church. I just hope that you can revise your policies, and when you bring somebody to pray, I think it's a good thing, but nevertheless, I don't think that you've been discussing with the public. Thank you.
If no one else has anything to say about this, any of our other council members, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve agenda item C3, the treasurer's cash report.
And I'll second.
That motion passes unanimously. The next item pulled is item C4, the application for a cabaret license for Lush Coffee and Tea located at 324 Main Street. Do you need a report on that, or Councilmember Campbell?
No report. I just wanted to make a couple of comments on that particular item. I'm concerned in regards to the number of cabaret licenses that we've been issuing and the related noise impacts that it'll have in the community, as well as law enforcement responses that are going to have to be called out to these locations for noise complaint violations, etc. I'd like to look at discussing in the future the cabaret licenses, and I think we'll partly be able to discuss that under item D3, the noise regulation item. But looking at a broader application of the cabaret licenses throughout the city, of how those are adopted and how those regulations coexist with our other noise ordinances throughout the city. So at this time, I can't support this particular cabaret license application because knowing the location as well as the amount of space in that particular business, amplified music just seems to be a little bit excessive at this time. So I will not be supporting this item tonight.
Does anyone else have a comment? Or if I see none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Please cast your votes. That motion passes with one no vote. The next thing that was pulled out of our consent agenda was item C10, and that is amendment to the Vista Municipal Code, Chapter 8.12, to prohibit e-smoking in public places. So would you like a report on that? I have one speaker. Actually, do I have two speakers? I have two speakers on that. Do you want to hear the speakers? Okay, we'll have speakers first. The first one is Gina Knutson, followed by Erica Leary.
Good evening. My name is Gina Knutson, and I'm the program manager at Vista Community Clinic's Tobacco Control Program. And I'm here tonight. I wanted to provide you some information on e-cigarettes. It's kind of a new trend in the tobacco arena, and so I wanted to give you some information on that. According to the Food and Drug Administration, e-cigarettes are devices that allow users to inhale a vapor containing nicotine or other substances. They are battery operated, and they use an atomizer to heat a refillable liquid cartridge that then releases a chemical-filled vapor. They're available in flavors that appeal to children and teens, such as cotton candy, chocolate, strawberry, mint, root beer, etc. There's all sorts of flavors for them. The health consequences of the use of e-cigarettes and the vapor they give off are unknown. Although we do know from the FDA on some preliminary studies that there is a known carcinogen that is contained in e-cigarettes, which is diethylene glycol, which is found in antifreeze. No brand of e-cigarettes has been submitted to the FDA for evaluation of their safety. Also, there's no evidence to show that vapors emitted by e-cigarettes are safe for non-users to inhale. The FDA plans to regulate e-cigarettes as tobacco products. More research is needed around the potential health effects of e-cigarettes. Just right now, we don't know a whole lot. The use of e-cigarettes in public spaces and workplaces may also complicate efforts to enforce and comply with smoke-free laws. And finally, the FDA has not approved e-cigarettes as an effective method to help smokers quit. In San Diego County, there are 3 cities that have regulations regarding the use of e-cigarettes, and they're El Cajon, Del Mar, and Solana Beach. And if you have any further questions, let me know.
Thank you. Erica Leary.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak before you this evening. My name is Erica Leary. I'm the program manager for the North Coastal Prevention Coalition, which works to reduce the harm of alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and other drugs in the cities of Carlsbad, Oceanside, and Vista. I just want to make the comment and reiterate the definition that these devices are used for nicotine and other substances, which can be difficult to identify. Part of the reason, in my understanding, that you're looking at this issue is to simplify the enforcement process regarding current city ordinances about where smoking is permitted. Enforcement can be even further complicated if these devices are allowed in public, because it would be difficult to know what people are smoking. A recent blog post on whitecloudelectroniccigarettes.com, which is opposing a state-introduced Senate Bill 648 regarding regulating e-cigarettes, has posted that even more consumers are in an uproar as hundreds of patients use these devices to vape their medicinal marijuana and have opposed such regulations. There are a lot of unknowns regarding this new product, and I think Vista Youth would be well served in keeping e-cigarettes out of parks, public events, and other venues where smoking is currently prohibited, and thus also shielded from the behavior of smoking. Thank you. Oh, consumers will have the option of using these products in the privacy of their own homes, so they won't be banned. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from the council? Anyone?
I'll make a motion to adopt this ordinance.
I'll second.
Okay. Nobody's going to say anything, but I would just say normally I wouldn't consider this, but I think the effect on our children is one of the reasons that I'm considering it, because I think that you can't tell the difference between these and regular cigarettes, and And they do have nicotine, a lot of them, and other substances. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and support this. And then if at a later date they're proved very safe or there's something, then they can always come back to us. But the only thing is, I don't see that this doesn't, isn't it our parks and things? It doesn't follow our smoking ordinance. Is that correct?
Mayor, this, and council members, this does follow our smoking ordinance. Our smoking ordinances are broken into two parts. This particular ordinance regulates smoking in public places which are enclosed areas. So it includes restaurants, any place that we otherwise prohibit smoking. However, smoking in parks are regulated under a completely different section of the municipal code, and smoking has a different definition in that section. This does not affect it. If it were the consensus of the council, we could certainly bring back an ordinance that would also apply to parks. But this was focused on the indoor enclosed spaces where the effect is most likely to cause enforcement issues.
Okay, okay. That makes sense. Okay, seeing no other comments, I guess I would call for the vote. That motion passes with 1 no vote. The next thing on our agenda are our discussion items. And our first discussion item is a review of the general plan. And John Conley will be giving us a review of that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, we adopted an update to our general plan in 2012, which was a comprehensive update of all the elements of our plan. The plan is used as the blueprint for growth in the future within our community, and so we would like to keep it as a living document, so to speak, and revisit the policies in the plan on an occasional basis. So when it was adopted in 2012, the staff indicated at that time that we'd be bringing back the plan every year to talk about the policies, to get input from the council and the planning commission on changes within the community or issues, trends that are facing the community that they'd like to address in the plan and make the appropriate changes. So that's what brings me here tonight. Could you move the slides for me, Kathy? Thank you. What I'm going to do briefly is just go through each of the items that were discussed in the staff report real briefly and cover a couple of the issues that have been brought forward to staff as well as those that were covered by the Planning Commission, and then look for some council input on what you'd like to do in the way of bringing back specific plan changes. Next slide. First is in the land use and community identity element. This is the primary element that guides growth within the community. It includes land use designations for all of the areas within the city that guide the land uses and zoning within those areas, as well as policies in terms of how we want to implement the land use of those areas and make sure that they're compatible, et cetera. A number of changes have occurred since adoption in 2012 affecting the land use element, which we intend to change, and we're not really looking for council direction. Some of those are with respect to the redevelopment changes, the elimination of redevelopment and the successor agency, the sale of the city's properties, et cetera. And so we'll address some of those changes in the loss of the redevelopment area within the plan. There's been a number of issues related to bargain basement stores that have been raised within the community. That's a definition that was adopted in 2009, along with a number of other, let's say, concerning commercial uses that regulates, that category regulates stores that sell a majority of discount merchandise. And at the time, in 2009, we adopted an ordinance that requires a special use permit for those uses in the commercial zones, and so we've been requiring special use permits for such applications since then. We've had a couple approved, one down in Shadow Ridge, one on East Vista Way, but each time they come forward, it seems like there's more community input and council concerns about how we're going to regulate those types of uses in the future. So I'm interested in the council's input on whether we want to create or enforce, create new regulations or stricter regulations, or look at the definitions of how we're defining that use to see if any changes are warranted. With respect to commercial centers, one of the issues that we're hearing is a number of the outdated commercial centers or older centers in town have had difficult times maintaining their centers. And if the city has any ability to affect that or improve that with any policy direction, and so there's, I think, some limits to what we can do there, but that's been an issue nonetheless that's come up and that we can discuss. The map that's shown on the overhead is the opportunity areas for the city. These are basically the areas that we highlighted in the general plan update for where we would like to see growth, where we would like to see economic activity, where we're considering land use changes or policy changes to promote economic activity for specific reasons that are identified in the policies. And so we don't really foresee a lot of change to those, but we would be interested in the council's interest in any of those specific areas or ideas about how we might enhance growth within those areas beyond what's already in the plan. The circulation element is our transportation master plan. It includes master planning for all of our roadways, bikeways, trails, etc., any way to move around the city. We're about to undertake a bicycle master plan, which will relook at our bicycle routes throughout the city and how we intend to spend our transportation funding in developing those facilities. And so the different classes of bicycle routes, how we intend to use our existing right-of-way, if we want to restripe to allow for more width for bike lanes or make different changes to how we accommodate bike travel throughout the city, will be looked at in the bicycle master plan, and we'll be coming back to the council with some specific recommendations following that study in terms of our bicycle policies. One of the issues that was also addressed was parking policies, and that's something that the Planning Commission also commented on. You can go to the next slide. Thank you, Kathy. Other elements within the plan are the resource conservation and sustainability element. This is the element that addresses environmental resources within the city. The Healthy Vista element, which addresses health impacts, health concerns throughout the community. The noise element, one of the issues raised with respect to the noise element was there is a compatibility matrix within the element that looks at land uses and what noise levels are applicable to those types of land uses. We're going to clarify that that's intended to address new development rather than existing development in the review of applications. There's a public safety and facilities element and a housing element, and we don't expect or are not anticipating any changes to those elements based on the recent adoption and the fact that the housing element went through a substantial review at the state level. So we reviewed all these issues with the Planning Commission in September. There was a couple things that they focused on, which I'll cover real quickly. They are interested in the bargain basement store issue. They felt like we should look at how we're regulating those, if we should be considering any increased development standards, or how we are defining those, whether or not those uses should be strictly limited to, let's say, overstock items or things that are truly discount versus discount grocery chain that might sell regular household items or their own name brand items for cheap prices. So there's no distinction in the current definition. We're interested in if the council's interested in pursuing that. The commission indicated some interest in doing so. With respect to parking requirements, the staff has been considering the possibility of looking at reduced parking requirements in our downtown area, specifically around the transit center, as well as affordable housing projects. There's been demonstrated studies in both areas that the parking standards that we have in our code are much higher than what those uses really require. And so we're going to be looking at some studies and bringing forward some recommendations in terms of those two areas. The Planning Commission indicated their support for that review. There was a comment about doing an environmental review for the opportunity areas in a programmatic fashion so that we could pursue development opportunities in those areas without going through the environmental requirements under state law. That's a costly endeavor to undertake, but it could be done, and it could enhance or, I guess, improve the timing of applications going through those areas. So it's something we can consider. It was a request on the part of the commission, but again, is a major undertaking cost-wise. They did talk about bicycle improvements under the bicycle master plan, and as I said, we'll bring those back. There was a issue raised with respect to quiet zones at the sprinter crossings. A number of concerns from people in the community have been raised about freight train activity late at night and the sprinters' noise at the crossings and the city's ability to implement those. There is already a policy in the general plan to pursue those as funding is available, but because of the limited funding available to make those improvements, it's not currently in our CIP. And then the final comment was with regard to invasive plants in the creeks and to continue the eradication of invasive species within our creek areas, which is something we've been doing with the help of grant money over the last few years. So that completes a summary of the issues we wanted to talk to you about this evening and those that were brought back from the commission, and I'm available to answer any of the council's questions. Thank you.
We do have one speaker. Would you like to hear the speaker? Sure. Erica Leary.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm sorry, you have a lot of items on the agenda this evening that are of particular interest to me, so you'll have to bear with me. Regarding the general plan, I just wanted to make the point that I would recommend, if at all possible, or suggest that the general plan be cited and referenced in staff reports when specific agenda items come before the council. I think this would be a benefit and help ensure that the hard work done in creating the general plan are kept on both the staff minds and the council radar, and provide a means to track and evaluate progress in achieving the goals of the plan. As you probably figured, I'm particularly interested in the Healthy Vista element, which was adopted for the first time, and lays out the opportunity for Vista to become a health leader in looking at public health issues. There have been a few items that have been before the council that did not get approved that I would have thought would have put Vista on the map as becoming a health leader, but I'm not here about specific votes or issues, but more of a means of including the general plan goals and objectives and policy statements in the specific items and recommendations that come before the council. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do I have any comments from the council? Don't have any other speakers. No? So we'll see. Now this is a discussion. Do we need a motion for approval on this?
What I was looking for, Mayor, was if the council is... Okay.
Oh, we got a question here. Hold on.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the parking downtown in the bargain basement. Did you say that the Sprinter... I know the Planning Commission had some good ideas on the Sprinter, but it seems like they're unreasonable as far as, implementing them money-wise.
The commission's interest was about quiet zones and establishing those at the crossings so that the trains didn't have to blow their horns every time they go through the street crossings. But there is a policy in the plan right now to pursue that as funding is available. And since the cost of creating those crossings is fairly significant in the millions of dollars, we haven't begun to budget for it yet.
Yeah, because I don't think everybody understands how much goes into developing a quiet zone, all the intersection changes that need to be made, and the rails, and yeah, it's
significant.
So, I'd like to be able to pursue that as well, but I think that's probably down the road. I would like to discuss a little bit more about the parking downtown, because I know that that's always something that seems to come up whenever we're discussing projects that are going to be developed down there. And I would like to know, I guess, how we compare to some other downtowns, whether it's Oceanside or San Marcos or Escondido, as far as our parking requirements for downtown.
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you exactly what the parking requirements are, but in general, many of the other North County cities are considering parking reductions or have adopted parking reductions for the areas within the immediate distance from their transit centers, from their Sprinter stations. And there is a Sandag study that looked at a range of different land uses and densities adjacent to similar mass transit opportunities to support reducing parking within an immediate walking distance of those areas, such as a quarter-mile distance. So that's what we're looking at. We will bring back, as part of that study, both Sandag's findings in terms of the uses that they looked at within the region, as well as what the other surrounding cities are using. We're not anticipating gutting the parking in downtown, but we do want to create an incentive for projects that are going to do what we're trying to achieve downtown, provide housing and commercial uses that we're looking for.
Okay, well, that's what I'm looking for. I guess a little flexibility, incentives for downtown projects. And bargain basement. In the past, I've not been very supportive of bargain basement, but I have kind of thought about this whole business, and as I drive through town, I see a lot of empty commercial space, and just like several years ago when we had contemplated maybe banning the sign waivers and that because it didn't look great, it wasn't real appealing. But at the time, we thought, hey, this is business, and we want to be friendly to the businesses, and in hard times, we want to give them all of the marketing opportunities. So we decided against it, and I think that was a good decision at that time, and I still think it's a good decision, even though I don't care for them, but it's the way that some people choose to do their business, and that's okay. But the same thing with the bargain basement. I think limiting property owners to who they can rent to when there's not a clear morals, or there's no issues legally or morally with the business, I think we should maybe consider having more flexibility in the future. If we want to limit how many we have in a certain area, I'm okay with that. But I think we should revisit this bargain basement business. And it goes back to one of the issues that I think we want to fix, and that is some of these landlords or property owners who have let their strip malls get run down. I think we can use, if they want to allow one of these bargain basement businesses to come in, then they need to make certain improvements and, hold them accountable to fixing their properties and making them respectable properties. Because that's the other thing. You drive around town and you see these old businesses or old properties, and they're run down. They're not well kept, and there's cheap businesses that are running in there because they can, and they're collecting their rent, yet a property owner wants to bring in one of these bargain basement businesses, and hopefully they'll come in and we can say, hey, listen, if you want to do that, you got to fix your property. Much like we did with Chevrolet, they wanted to change their use a little bit. We required them to do some painting, put a little landscaping. Unfortunately, their business didn't work out. But look at the property. At least even when it's empty, it looks decent. And I think that that's what we need to start requiring from some of these property owners if that's what they want to bring in. And I think this is a good opportunity for us.
Councilmember Coles, Deputy Mayor Coles.
Thank you. Mr. Connolly, I appreciate you, the dilemma you face in planning. You need a reflection of our community standards, which we as the representatives of our constituents give you feedback on. And it helps you then to direct how you're going to develop the plans for the future of our city. And this is a great opportunity for us to give you some feedback. I was interested in the comments about bike lanes, and you talked about how we use our right-of-ways to restripe or whatever. Do we have the capability of just creating safe bike lanes with restriping, or do we have to do some major overhaul to the sidewalks or roadsides when it comes to that, or what do you see as the impediments to developing more avenues of bikes?
We really believe at this point it'll be a combination of both restriping and improvements, but what we're trying to accomplish is creating a better bikeway system within the paved areas that we have available to us today. That'll be looking at removing parking on some of our arterials or creating some, maybe a little bit more constrained travel lanes to allow for some more space for bikes to move through some of the streets where we don't have the right-of-way to have a full-blown, 2 lanes and a Class 2 bike lane. We're really trying to maximize the use of the streets and minimize the cost of the city, but there will be some areas that are inevitably constrained that we'll have to do improvements in.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the forward-looking effort you're making in that regard. And then the other thing, and this is the dilemma I think we've been facing as a council, and I think you as staff, is the issue with the bargain basement stores. And I was interested in the feedback you provided to us from the Planning Commission in their desire to look at the types of bargain basement stores, because until you get into the middle of this, you don't realize that there are some that are just reselling surplus items off the shelves of bigger department stores, and then others that just package their own products for a cheaper price. And I think I agree quite a bit with what Councilman Aguilar was talking about, is that my goal is to have a clean, neat-looking city, storefronts, and store operations. And I think maybe we need, as a council, to get some more education about the science of bargain basement or retailing, as it were, and provide incentives to some of the commercial storefront owners and strip mall owners to allow them flexibility with how they can rent out their space, provided we get some quality improvements in our visual environment around the city. So I'm interested in looking at some options that might be available to us to relook at some of our policies. I know we don't want to be a city where people go to flea markets. We want to be a city with a variety of retail opportunities for everybody. Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
So I want to follow up on a couple of comments that my fellow council members have made, hitting on a couple of issues. First, I'll give my 2 cents on the bargain basement stores. See, this is kind of a dilemma for the city, because while we don't want vacant storefronts, if we fill the vacant storefronts, even making them look nice, and fill them with bargain stores, quote unquote, we'll never attract the quality mid-range to higher-end retail stores that we want to attract to bring sales tax revenue to the city and shopping destinations for the North County region. In my opinion, in many cases, this is going to take time to fill the storefronts in the city. We had the economic collapse in 2008, 2009. The economy has not recovered from that. So to blindly think that we just need to loosen our regulations some more to allow for discount stores and discount resale outlets to come into the city and offer up some minor painting improvements in landscape to let them move in is the wrong thing for the city of Vista to do. Do we want to take steps backwards and go the opposite direction of our neighboring cities of Carlsbad and San Marcos that are working to improve their communities through attracting quality retail outlets that provide good paying jobs for their community? Or do we want to promote having more businesses come in that provide little to no sales tax revenue for the city and minimum wage jobs? Is that the kind of city that we want to be? And my answer to that personally is absolutely not. I would rather work with our economic development department and attract one quality business to move into a center than attract 10 or 20 bargain 99-cent stores to move in through the rest of the community. That's not the direction that we need to go in. So that being said, I think that we do need to reevaluate some of our bargain basement ordinance to tighten it up so that we have a clear objective for landlords and potential tenants to know that particular use isn't welcome in the city of Vista. I mean, if you drive along East Vista Way in, a 1.5 mile stretch, how many 99-cent stores do we have? Is that what we want to be as a community? If so, then by all means, let's open it up to more. But I don't think that's where the community wants us as a council to direct the city. And I don't think the voters of the community want to see more businesses come in that don't deliver sales tax revenue to the city and make Vista a far less desirable city for quality businesses to move to. So I don't want to eliminate or weaken the restrictions that we have. If anything, I'd rather re-examine them and clarify them so that we don't run into some of the issues that we've run into this year. The other one, talking about poor maintenance of shopping centers and landlords, there's a lot of derelict buildings in the city that have poor maintenance, that are falling apart, they're fenced off. Maybe if you or the city attorney could give us some options, either now or in the future, what could we do from a regulatory standpoint to bring compliance by the property owners? A lot of them are property owners that don't live in the community. It's just an investment property for them, or it's a corporation. What can we do to bring those locations into compliance, whether it's working directly with the property owner, creating some new ordinance that requires better maintenance of those facilities, because it's really an eyesore when you drive along throughout the community and you come across a building that's been vacant for 8 or 9 plus years. The windows are broken out, it's got a chain link fence around it, and it really doesn't make it conducive for other businesses to want to be in that area. So that's something that I'd like to look at. What can we do outside of when a business wants to move into that location and develop it? What can we do now to bring about compliance and bring about better beautification for the city? So that is my comment on the bargain basement and the maintenance of the other shopping centers and just locations in general throughout the city. I think the other one is the beautification, when we can improve the area through a visual means, that it will bring about better economic growth and viability and opportunity for those businesses in that area. Shoppers don't want to go in areas that don't look good and they don't feel comfortable being in. So if we can improve that and bring about a better change, I think that it'll help the city in general. The other one, I just wanted to make a point of pointing out the recommendations or some of the thoughts that the Planning Commission put in, was the policy recommending limits on the McClellan-Palomar Airport. Even though that's way outside of our range of control and input, I think that one's something that I would hope the rest of the council would agree that providing more commercial opportunity in the region and more jobs is a good thing. And if that means an expansion of the airport, while some of the houses that are in there that are in another city may not want that, I think that it provides more opportunity for the North County region to have more flights come into the region, more tourism, vacationers, and business folks to come into the area and possibly better serve our own business park as well. So I just wanted to make that comment as well. So thank you.
Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you. Excuse me. The mention in the staff report regarding the airport expansion also is on my list to discuss, perhaps in a different direction, though. I do recognize that we want to improve the economic balance in Vista and bring businesses in and that economy. However, I am a little bit concerned with the noise that would come from increased air traffic, whether it be passenger jets, commercial jets, etc. Having experienced at 11:30 in the morning the other day a giant airplane buzzing low over my house, I don't want to live with that all the time. So I know that the staff report says that it's a little bit out of our purview, but I do believe that some of our city residents would be affected by an expansion of the airport, and I think that our economy would be affected by the expansion of the airport. So not to come down on one way or the other on this particular topic, but I do think that it's something that our city should investigate, should be a part of in the discussions, or at least, you know, very paying close attention observers to the process. So that's where I would go on that one right now. Also, my opinion on the bargain basements, that we probably need to redefine and address that. But I'm also of the opinion that I'm not sure that the direction that the residents want us to go is to have a dollar store or a bargain basement store on every street corner. I would be a little bit reticent to loosen our restrictions at this point to allow for more of that. I think it's something that we want to bring in, again, higher end, mid-end, more economic value to the city with jobs as well as sales tax. So that's where I would go on that one as well. And as far as the railroad crossings and the quiet zones, we're talking about the horns and the bells at the intersections. The public safety is a concern for me at that. So I would be a little bit reticent to just immediately, with a broad brush, say, yes, let's reduce the noise at intersections where there are rail crossings, because you have safety issues that need to be addressed. So that's just some of my concerns on that. So for now, that's all I have. Not to say I won't have more in the future. Thank you.
Okay, with that concludes our speakers. Do you have enough direction? Did you get? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
John Aguilera, Councilmember Aguilera has more to say here.
Well, I just wanted to remind my council members, how economics work, and the value of a property is really based on the revenues that it can generate. And if properties are empty, values go down. You don't get the property tax that you want to get. And those businesses will provide some sort of sales tax. And I'm not saying we need to have one on every corner, but you also have to remember that this is something the community apparently does want, because they do go to these stores, they pay with their wallet, and that's how they're given their opinion, is with their wallet. When somebody pays for something, it means they want it. And that's what we're seeing. And these businesses wouldn't want to come into our city if there wasn't a demand here. And it's just the laws of economics, supply and demand. There's a high demand for that type of business, and these property owners want to meet that demand by supplying the businesses. So just something to think about, and that's all I got to say. Thank you.
I have Councilmember Campbell.
First, I'll say I'm quite familiar with the economics of business in our community, but I'd say this is the chicken or the egg argument. Which came first, the demand for the store, or the store drives the demand for it in the community? And I think in this case, you look, could you give me an answer how many defined bargain basement stores off the top of your head estimate in the city of Vista we currently have?
When we adopted it in 2009, I think we had 15 or 16. There's a few less now.
I would say that if you go into those locations, which I've been to many of those locations several months ago when we were looking at one particular business, I'd say that we have more than enough supply of that particular type of business in the city currently, and providing more supply would either drive down...
Just let the economics work then.
Excuse me, can you let me finish? Don't interrupt. Thank you. I would say that if we allow more businesses to come in, we're going to run the risk of lowering the business volume of those other stores, and in all total, what we're going to have is a reduction or an equalization of the sales tax revenue that the city gets, and a reduction of those other businesses' current business. So again, I really don't see that as the direction of the city to go. The last thing we want to do is have a race to the bottom versus a race to improve the city and the overall quality of life in the city.
Deputy Mayor Coles.
I don't think any of us want to race to the bottom. And my comments were, I just need to learn more about the differentiation between types of bargain basement stores. You know, the old Kmart building on Sycamore stood vacant for, it became an eyesore in the region. And it was finally Burlington Coat Factory came in, and it could be, by some definitions, a bargain basement, but it's one of the busiest centers in that part of Vista. And so all I'm saying is I would like to be able to look at some of the opportunities and types of retail that we could analyze to attract. And I know that Mr. Ham and his office works overtime trying to get, we'd love to have Nordstrom Rack. We'd love to have a lot of these high-end retail businesses here. And they're not knocking at our door, and I know Kevin's knocking at their door. So I'm not, I by any means want to open the door to 99-cent stores and secondhand stores. I'd just like to know more about what opportunities and options we might look at up against our current ordinance to see if there's anything we could do to invite vibrant retail of different types into our retail areas.
Well, being it looks like it's maybe a tie, I'll kind of weigh in on the retail stores, or the bargain basement stores. I think once we start to slide down any further, it'll just continue, and it's very hard to dig out of that. So I don't support them, but I'd be willing to look at the distinction, like the Planning Commission said, between like a surplus items or a household item store, grocery store, maybe just that type of thing. I'd be willing to look at that, but and once you allow, you can't just allow one more in. You have to either open the door to all of them. To be fair to everyone, you have to open the door to all of them, or say no, not right. Right now we have enough of them. So it's a tough thing, but I right now would not open the door to any more. So that's kind of where I stand. So were there any other things that we're tied on? That we had a tie vote? No? Okay.
So the purpose of tonight's discussion was just to get some direction from the council and come back with some items. So it's clear the bargain basement store is an item that we'll come back with. We'll talk about what our current ordinance allows for, what the policies address in the general plan, and then provide some options in the way of changing that in the future if that's the direction of the council, or leaving what is there. The parking issue will come back. We'll do that as part of the specific plan update for the downtown specific plan that we're going to start working on early next year. We will bring a comparison of some of the other cities back with that to look at what they're using and what Sandag's recommended. We will be bringing back the bikeway issue and talking more about what we can do on the existing roads versus improving roads, and trying to use what resources we have to make improvements with striping to the extent that that's possible. And then we'll also look at the possibility of an airport policy as well, and we'll bring those back most likely as separate items. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So with that, we will move on to item D2, which is a request for discussion of outdoor dining smoking regulations.
Mayor, I just want to let you know on this is for the request of discussion for outdoor dining smoking regulations, as you stated. And at the request of Councilman Campbell and per Vista Council Policy 200-4, I was asked to place this item on the agenda to find out if there is consensus among the City Council to reconsider the expansion of the existing city smoking regulations. And so Policy 200-4, so everybody knows, is if a vote is taken on an item by the City Council and a council member wishes to place this item on the agenda again, that request shall take place. And so that's what this is here for. And so at this time, if a majority of the City Council approves the request, the matter will be brought back at the next City Council meeting for discussion and review. And as Councilmember Campbell requested this item, my guess is he would like to comment on that and have a discussion.
I have one speaker also. Do you want to hear the speaker first? Okay, Erica Leary.
I don't think I've ever done this before, so thank you. I won't take much time. Just really briefly, I was here when this item was on the agenda before, and I just wanted to share my recent experiences during the late summer, early fall months when we had some nice weather. Recently, I had the occasion of being in downtown Carlsbad on 2 separate weekend evenings with friends and my husband for dinner. And on both occasions, on 2 different establishments, the patios were full of people eating meals, people of all ages. The smokers were relegated to parking lots, but most of the customers were not smoking, and everybody was able to enjoy the patio in a very pleasant environment. And this was contrasted with a recent visit to a business in San Marcos where smoking is allowed, and there were only 4 people on the patio. They were smoking, and everybody else was inside the restaurant on a nice summer day, not enjoying that outside patio. And smoke-free outdoor dining would benefit the majority, over 85% of Vista's population that doesn't smoke, and help achieve Vista's general plan with the Healthy Vista Policy Goal 1.8 to encourage the establishment of tobacco-free outdoor spaces, such as outdoor dining areas, employee break areas, private open space areas, and other privately operated outdoor facilities. Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you. I brought this item request back after a couple of months following the original item that we had to regulate smoking in outdoor dining facilities, get a little bit more time for the ordinance in our surrounding city of Carlsbad to set in and get a little bit more feedback to bring back to the council of whether that was successful or not in that city. And recently I had a discussion with the mayor of Carlsbad and his take of how that's impacted restaurant business in the city of Carlsbad. Quite frankly, if anything, it's improved business at restaurants on outdoor dining patios, because the vast majority of our community and the surrounding communities are non-smokers. Not only are they non-smokers, many people have asthma or other lung conditions that don't allow them to be around smokers, nonetheless sit 10 or 15 feet away from them on an outdoor patio at a restaurant. So we have the argument, I've heard from a lot of people, well, just go somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera. But guess what? We regulate other things like drinking and driving because it affects other people and it affects other people's health. Smoking does the exact same thing. If someone in this room right now were smoking, guess what? We'd all be affected. So it's the same principle. If somebody wants to smoke in their own home, it doesn't affect me directly. But if somebody wants to smoke, walk down a sidewalk with a lit cigarette and walk within 20, 25 feet of me or greater, I smell it. I have severe allergy problems and or occasional near asthma conditions. So I have a lung breathing condition. So I myself am negatively impacted, as are tens of thousands of other people in our communities. So it's our responsibility as a council, my belief, that we provide a more equal, level playing field for our businesses to help those businesses that have already taken the sensible, responsible step to make their facilities smoke-free and create a level playing field. Because the other factor that we often don't talk about is what is the number one item that's littered in our community? It's cigarette butts. Where do they go? They go down the storm drain, they go into our beaches and our oceans, and that's just wrong. We as a city council, can take action to not only help improve our environment from a litter standpoint, but from a public health standpoint to make Vista a community that is a destination for people to go eat at restaurants. This is something that is just pure folly if we don't pass something that helps regulate smoking at restaurants. Because let me be clear, if this is something that we don't do, the state legislature, hopefully very soon, will pass an ordinance that affects the entire state. But why do we want to wait another 6 months, another year and a half to not protect our citizens? So I brought this back and I requested the city manager place this item back on the agenda to give an opportunity for this council to do the right thing by way of the citizens of Vista, to join the growing number of cities in San Diego County and throughout the state. Over 1/4 of all cities have already done this or something more impactful that protects the public health. I know last time, Councilwoman Rigby, you suggested, and I appreciate your comments on this matter, that the community clinics and the public health organizations are doing a very good job of reducing smoking, and they are. But the problem still remains that if it was 1% or 2% of the population that smokes, all it takes is one smoker on a patio at a restaurant that ruins it for everyone else or creates a public health issue. So I'm asking that we move forward the city of Vista. We go in a direction that isn't looking back, isn't taking that step backwards or waiting for other folks to do the right thing for us, that we take a step and move this forward, because the vast majority of the community wants it. You know, I spoke last time, I said, if the council can't take the action to move this and put it on the agenda, pass it, and implement it in the community, that I will pursue moving this to a ballot measure so the people of Vista can vote on it and pass it. But there's a catch to that. If we put this on a ballot measure, it's going to cost the city a substantial amount of money to run a ballot measure. I don't want to do that. I don't think anybody else on the council wants it to cost over $100,000 or $150,000 to put a ballot measure on, because that's money that we don't have to spend. But if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. But I want to give the council an opportunity first to do the right thing, to do the job that is the people of the city elected us to do, which is to protect public health, public safety. This is no different in my mind than building the new fire stations that we did to provide better fire service for public safety. Prohibiting smoking at restaurant patios is the exact same type thing. It's protecting public health and public safety. So I'd ask that the council, this is the way our agenda policy works in the city is very strange. So this is merely a discussion item to request that the council have a consensus to put the item back on the agenda. So I'd request that the item go back on a future agenda to be voted on again. Thank you.
And so we really can't have any discussion on this item. We can only vote whether to put it back on the agenda or not. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's not on the merits of the issue, but whether you want to hear it again.
Okay, so I would...
Could I ask a clarification just in regard to that? So
Okay.
this could just come back at every meeting, whether there's a difference of opinion on the council? Councilmember Campbell could just reintroduce this at every meeting and, until somebody wears down?
I think the way the current policy reads is that it can be placed on a later agenda. It does not specify whether it can come back one time or multiple times. I leave that to the city attorney for maybe interpretation.
That's correct. The current policy does not establish a limit on time or numbers of reintroduction. So if that becomes a concern, the council can certainly consider amending the policy. And I would ask, I interpreted Councilman Campbell's final remarks as a motion. Would we take it that way?
That would be correct.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I've got to make a comment because I was one of two that supported the, after several meetings of discussing several versions of an ordinance to do something similar to Carlsbad's, and I supported that, but we didn't have enough votes. But and until somebody else who would represent a majority is of a mind to reconsider this, I don't want to just keep bringing this back on future agendas until there's maybe a different somebody else who could break through the vote would be willing to bring it back.
I might just add that at this time, the request has just been made for this item on this agenda. There hasn't been a request for any future agendas, obviously.
But do we need a second on that item, on that motion?
You would need a second in order to consider the motion further.
Oh, okay, so his motion is to bring it back, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
If I may make a brief comment to Councilmember Cole's comment about not wanting to continue to see this until there's another person that would vote yes on it. If I may ask the city attorney, or at least I'll give my opinion, I think that the public's business, it's designed to be done in public, and we wouldn't know if there's another member of the council who would support voting yes on this item until it is actually brought before the council, because would that not have a potential Brown Act violation, needing to see that there's a majority of support on an issue before that issue came before the council to be voted on? Would that not violate the intent of the Brown Act? Wouldn't that be making a majority consensus behind the scenes?
Taking concerted action to decide the issue would be a violation of the Brown Act. Obviously, since no one knows what would be brought back, it would certainly be possible to understand if someone else were interested in bringing the issue back without necessarily arriving at a consensus with other people to do that. Obviously, one-on-one conversations are not in and of themselves violations of the Brown Act.
So I guess see no second to that motion, then the motion dies, is that correct? And it doesn't come back? Is that how it goes?
Yes, the motion would die for lack of a second.
So somebody else could get religion and say, I've seen the light here, and we want to. They could talk to our city manager and say, or to another individual about that, and it then could come back.
That's correct. Or under council comment, which has been done,
Okay.
Can ask the city council if they'd like to bring the item back.
Okay, so are we moving on to okay, moving on then. Moving on to item D3, which is the noise regulations for our historic downtown. And so Ali Zimmerman will take that.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This item is a discussion of some of the issues that have taken place recently in the historic downtown and how we want to regulate or not noise that comes from the businesses. Management Analyst Cheryl Mass will provide a staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. In August, the City Council directed staff to research options related to noise issues in the historic downtown area in response to noise complaints received in this area. The noise is generated by establishments delivering live entertainment through a cabaret license. The complaints raised a potential conflict between acceptable noise levels during nighttime hours in Vista's current noise ordinance and entertainment allowances granted by cabaret licenses during those same hours. Given the resources expended to redevelop the downtown area over the past several years and the resulting increased economic growth and vibrancy Vista has yielded from the investment, staff recommends the City Council consider the following options to address the noise complaints. 1, revise the current noise ordinance to update the language and exempt a portion of the historic downtown area from current noise standards. 2, create an arts and entertainment district area over the exempt location and regulate noise in this area separately from the rest of the city. The boundaries of the district and any distinguishing regulations would be identified in the development code. Updating the current noise ordinance language provides Vista with the flexibility of utilizing sections of the San Diego County noise ordinance applicable to our local community, as well as addressing the conflict in noise standards by exempting a specific area referred to here as the district. The potential district area boundaries are identified as Vista Village Drive on the north to Buena Vista Creek on the south, and from South Santa Fe Avenue on the west to Citrus Avenue on the east. Creating an exempt area with higher allowable noise limits within would eliminate conflict with the noise ordinance regulating the rest of the city. We are looking for your direction on the staff recommendation or other ideas that may be discussed. Based on that direction, staff will return to the City Council at a future meeting with modifications to the municipal code and or development code. This concludes staff's presentation. Ms. Zimmerman and I are available to answer questions.
Okay, are the Deputy Mayor Coles, are these from last time or are these from this time? These are all last time? I have two speakers. So you want to hear the speakers first? Is that okay? It would be Brett Schatzenbaugh, followed by Erica Leary.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Brett Schanzenbach. I'm the CEO at the Vista Chamber of Commerce. And I first just want to say that the fact that we are even having this discussion is an enormously positive sign that life is coming to downtown Vista through lots of concerted effort from economic development within the city and the Downtown Association, the Chamber, and many others who for years have hoped to see a thriving downtown. And here we are having a discussion about noise problems. So that's a positive. So whatever direction we go, let's just celebrate for a moment that we even have to have this discussion. This, along with maybe parking problems, would be the best indicators that life is coming back to our downtown. But the Chamber is very much in favor of the concept that staff has put in the report of creating a district, an entertainment district. I forget the exact term in the report. And I think it's an arts and entertainment district, and relaxing the noise regulations within that district to support more of a thriving nightlife down there in downtown. Those businesses that are currently having some success, assisting them and working with them to continue that success so that we can continue to thrive and bring more businesses, and not just more nightlife businesses, but as they thrive, then maybe more retail businesses can come downtown that go with that. And we're seeing some of that already, but there's a lot more growth that can be done. But success breeds success, so we're not in favor of clamping down on those businesses that have already experienced some success at this point. We'd like to enhance and work with them and see what we can do to help them continue to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Okay, Erica Leary, followed by Stephanie Jackal.
Okay, this is it, I promise. Last item. Just mainly what I hope to do this evening is to make sure all of you were aware of the upcoming policy panel breakfast, where they're going to have a city council member and the director of community development from San Luis Obispo come and talk about the downtown efforts that they faced in the city of San Luis Obispo. Lots of problems with nightlife, different scenario obviously than Vista. They have a college town of Cal Poly, but they faced a lot of calls for service, drunkenness, law enforcement costs, and it should prove to be a very valuable session that you're all invited to, and we can help cover the $10 fee if you'd like us to. We're more than happy to. Just a couple other, and that's taking place on November 1st in the morning up here in Escondido, so not far from here. Just real quickly on some of the staff report and the law enforcement data, I feel like you may have been a little shortchanged in terms of law enforcement efforts that are needed in downtown areas. On the website crimemapping.com, in a 2-month period, August and September of 2013, there were 145 alcohol and drug crimes and DUI crimes in a 1-mile radius of the downtown Vista area. And this includes 17 DUIs that occurred after 10 p.m., or 60% of the DUIs in that period, and 39 drunken public arrests. 30% of those were after 10 p.m. If you followed all the news in downtown Encinitas and the number of problems and concerns they're having there with their increased nightlife and bars opening, they've had 61 arrests in that same 2-month period. These are just alcohol, drug, and DUI arrests. That's all. There's more crimes that take place. Of those 61, 22 were DUIs, and 86% of those took place between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. They also had 30 drunken public arrests in that 2-month period, and over a third of those were in those late night, early morning hours. And then our city to the west Oceanside in that 2-month period in a 1-mile radius downtown had 227 alcohol and drug arrests and DUI arrests. 93 of those were disorderly conduct of alcohol. They're not all just from entertainment venues. A lot, vagrancy, transiency, a lot of things come into play. But when you do increase public visiting and entertainment, you just have to be prepared for the increased law enforcement that is likely to come along with that, and hopefully set up some boundaries or guidelines and tools so you reduce and mitigate those potential problems. As just a side note, I compared it to my neighborhood. I live near College and Oceanside Boulevard in Oceanside, which is also a very commercial area, and there were only 11 crimes in that 2-month period. So I will leave these with the...
Thank you, Erica. Our next speaker is Stephanie Jackal. Welcome, Stephanie.
Good evening to each of you. I agree entirely with Brett Schatzenbach about the renewed vigor and vibrancy and wonderful things that are going on downtown. I couldn't be more thrilled. I'm also looking forward to another element for the downtown that we've been hoping for so long, and that is actual people living here. We have housing units or places, facilities planned for what we call the demonstration block, which is within the district that you propose. Just north of, across Vista Village Drive, there are more. Across South Santa Fe Avenue, there are additional facilities planned, which is wonderful and great and will be a marvelous addition to our downtown. So I would like to ask, as we consider the noise ordinance and the impact of noise, let's remember how that will impact people who will be living here. I'd just like us to please keep that in mind, because I want people to want to live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rigby, that is all of our speakers, so we'll go back to our council.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, if I might. I'm looking at the Sheriff's Department's crime statistics for calls for service here in Vista, dated July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2013. And I'm looking at the noise disturbance, and it lists, this is for the downtown area here in Vista. For noise disturbance, I see 4 calls. And then for drunk driving or driving under the influence, for that entire 1-year period, we have a grand total of 12 calls. So the other question I had, that was just an observation, looking at the crime statistics that we got from our own Sheriff's Department. The question I have for you is, in the staff report, it references noise complaints that we've had. My question is, how many complaints have we had, and by how many different individuals? Do we know that?
Thank you, Councilwoman. The noise complaints that are identified here are the ones that were reported through the Sheriff's Dispatch. So those are the complaints. If you're looking for perhaps complaints that were made to the city offices for code enforcement, I don't have that information, but we can provide it to you. These are the ones where the Sheriff's Department was requested on a call, and that total listed for the time is listed at the 4.
At the 4. So this goes till June 30th of 2013. Do we have any numbers between, say, July 1st and September 31st or 30th? Sorry.
Not at this time.
We don't. Okay. Would it, any idea, ballpark figure, would it be any significantly higher than the entire year of 2012, 2013? Do we, just a nod? No? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I agree also with Brett that it's a good thing that we have to talk about parking, perhaps, and noise and the vibrancy of our downtown area. And I like the idea of the Arts and Entertainment District. I'd like to see that idea come to fruition. Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
Just a couple of comments to begin with. So, with the intended map that we have up here, the proposed district map, does staff have a suggested idea in terms of time restrictions and decibel level restrictions at this time? What, in terms of any proposed changes to time noise restrictions, are we talking about? And would that be until 11 o'clock, midnight? Are there any suggestions that you or the city manager have in terms of thoughts at this time? 10 decibels higher, 15, 5?
Well, the conversations that we've had at this point relate to what the businesses that already have the cabaret license are allowed, that the city council approved without staff or the council realizing that they potentially conflicted with our noise ordinance. Generally, businesses in the downtown that have a live entertainment cabaret have the ability to have live entertainment until midnight, while the noise ordinance indicates 10 p.m. That is an inherent conflict right there. So we're not looking to go beyond what we've currently been allowing. We just want to specifically in this area regulate noise on the business and not on the entire city. But so we're looking for city council direction if they want to make a recommendation for a change to any of the times, but generally speaking, I don't think we would go outside of what you've already approved in the past.
And at this time, in terms of decibel levels, we're not ready to make a recommendation to that. We just want direction from council to know that if you want to go forward with this, then we'll come back with options for you.
Okay. I'll make some additional comments after Councilman Aguilera and Coles.
Okay, Councilmember Aguilera.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a great problem to have, great discussion to have. When I was first on the Planning Commission, this was kind of a dream problem to have, that we would have noise issues downtown and potentially parking issues as well. And so I think I would agree with staff in that it's a good idea to go to the midnight or on the noise, not change anything. So I don't want to increase the noise level, because we will have people living downtown, and regardless of whether they're realtors or whatever, property managers, let them know about the potential noise issues. You know that you'll always have some complaints regardless. But I think that people that typically would live in a downtown area, most people would be understanding and know that that's what they're really getting into. But I agree with our planning commissioner that we do need to consider that, particularly on that G8 project or whatever it's being called now. I mean, that's houses, homes right there in our downtown area. So I don't know if we could look at the businesses within that property, how they would be, because they would be part of the entertainment district as well, right?
You mean on the downtown block?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah, that would be a part of it. What we've talked about in concept is CCNRs or any type of disclosures that are made if it's for sale or for lease would include that you're in an entertainment district, but also in terms of when the building is constructed, I believe community development staff can come back with more specifics about how you mitigate noise through the design of the building.
So how does that work? I mean, if I have a party at my house, I got to shut it down at 10 o'clock, at least the band or whatever, the noise. I mean, if they're in an entertainment district, can they have parties till midnight?
In the residential building?
Yeah. They're in an entertainment district.
As long as nobody complains.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, would it be 10 o'clock like any other home, or?
Within an arts and entertainment district, the city council could set that limit at what you want.
For the building.
So currently, we operate 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's typical.
Well, I'm just saying in this particular project, though, is actually going to have homes in it. So, I mean, would we be able to say the residents, their cutoff time is 10 o'clock, but, whatever, Lush,
What do they do
Coffee
downtown
House
in
can
San
go to
Diego?
midnight?
The downtown Gaslight District. What do they do down there?
I don't know.
I think those
So
are
that's what we
governed
need to look
generally
at.
by the regulations of the apartment, or the CCNRs, if it's a condos, would specify what the rule,
Okay.
kind of the house rules are for the building, and the tenants would need to abide by those.
And keep in mind with the entertainment, we're talking about the businesses that currently have the cabaret license that are allowed to have entertainment. And so it doesn't mean that every business down there, retail businesses, likely aren't going to have cabaret licenses.
Okay. Well, just something to think about. So that's all I've got as far as this goes. Now, could this be an area where we would address parking as well in the entertainment district, or just noise, right?
I would ask Mr. Conley if he wanted to speak to that, but We're talking generally at this point about noise, and when we
Okay.
talk about the district, there,
I mean, if
there
we're
may
going to
be
create
other
this district, that
amenities.
might be something we
There may
want
be
to
other
consider
amenities,
too.
but
So there's two things we're going to look at. One is revising the noise ordinance to deal with this cabaret issue. So the cabarets will be exempted, or we'll define the cabarets are subject to noise standards that are outside the ordinance. That's the first part. The second part is the district. The district is most likely going to be a zoning designation of some kind, or recognized in a zoning document. That's the downtown specific plan. We're about to embark on updating that, so our intent is to address both parking and noise within that district. Although the parking may expand to outside what's shown on the screen, it will address that area as
Okay.
well.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I've got.
Deputy Mayor Coles.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that we do have a new vibrance downtown, and you know, I've seen this grow to a level that we've been excited about as Vistans, to see that we are an attractive downtown, and we bring in a lot of people from the region. I just want to be careful we don't create unintended consequences. So I support working to develop this arts and entertainment district, but I'm just curious what if it becomes a problem 6 years from now or whatever, to where we are all of a sudden, you know, kind of thinking, what have we unleashed here? How do we handle that down the road?
Well, as with our current cabaret licenses that we have law enforcement problems, we're able to enforce that, or we're able to revoke licenses if necessary.
Okay,
that
so
would be an avenue that we could use.
We have a we have a safety net here to keep things in check, and
In terms of the cabaret, we do.
Yeah, right. So I support our vibrant businesses. I just want to make sure that we don't go beyond what we would like to see in our downtown area.
Actually, it went since in 1981, when I started, when I got on the master plan committee to develop downtown, we all wanted to see a vibrant downtown where businesses would do well. And a few years ago, I would even say 4 years ago, you could roll a bowling ball down Main Street and it wouldn't hit anything. There was no traffic down there. So it's very exciting to see what's going on downtown. And I love the fact that the younger people are starting to stay in town rather than going to Carlsbad and other towns. So I definitely support making an art entertainment district. I think that would be a great thing for our city, and I think we'll work out the cabaret problems. I mean, if we want to have a vibrant downtown, we have to have let them have some leeway to entertain the people and bring them in. So that's where I am, and I see Councilmember Campbell wants to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with a couple of comments here. So the way the current noise ordinance reads, 832.010 or .010. So we have Part A of the prima facie noise violations, which is currently set citywide between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So what we're really looking at here is those current establishments or establishments in the future that obtain a cabaret license would be to clarify the exemption under the current noise ordinance to go until 11 o'clock or midnight, whatever the hour set in their cabaret license would be. But as the cabaret licenses allow those commercial businesses to have amplified music currently, if a business per se didn't have a cabaret license, they wouldn't be allowed to have excessive noise beyond what would currently be allowed. Is that what we're looking at here essentially?
That's essentially what we've been talking about. It's generally a business with not only a cabaret, but a cabaret that allows amplified entertainment where there would be some potential concern about noise.
Okay. So we would have that safety option if they continued to violate their cabaret license, to revoke the cabaret license, to bring them into compliance. So basically this is what we're proposing here, or what staff is proposing, is a carve-out for the cabaret licenses where there's a conflict currently between the hours that it's allowed under their cabaret license, but it's not allowed under the current noise ordinance. Is that essentially?
That's partially it. But I also think that when we bring this back, we will present options to the council where if the decibel level is currently from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. 55, that we would talk to you about what that means, what different decibel levels mean, and whether the council was receptive to keeping it at 55 or making it 60 or some other number. So while it's not just the cabaret license, I think we're going to look at different options if you're receptive to bringing this forward.
What I would say is, you know, I believe, Mayor, you brought up the city of San Diego and their downtown gas lamp area. And actually, before this came up over the past couple of months regarding the noise issues downtown, I researched other cities' noise ordinances and what they do for their commercial downtown cores, residential, light industrial, et cetera. And I think that our current ordinance is written in such a way where we have two standards, and if the city attorney could correct me if I'm wrong, we have our prima facie noise violation standards where if it's obviously extremely loud over a certain distance away from that particular property line where that ends, then you're automatically in violation without having to bring out the noise detecting equipment and doing the average decibel level over the certain period of time. Is that correct?
That is correct. Actually, we have possibly 3 or 4 different standards because in addition to the municipal code, we've adopted by reference the county code, which also has some prima facie standards that are different from ours, and other decibel level constraints. So we really have quite a smorgasbord at the moment of regulatory standards. It might be difficult to choose among them.
Right. And I think from what I've done looking at the other larger cities in the county is most have adopted the prima facie language as well as a decibel level, the 1 hour average sound level. So I don't want to get into too much detail, but I'm comfortable with where appropriate with the businesses that are in this district that have cabaret licenses that allow them to go until midnight with live entertainment. I don't see that that's a problem. Where I see a problem is businesses that go beyond that standard, where they just take this piece of paper that says they have until midnight, ignore it, and say, I'm going to do what I want to do. That, to me, is a significant issue. So if they want to go until 1:30, that's not what our code allows. That's not what their cabaret license allows. And I know firsthand through my own experience that there's one particular business downtown that's doing that. And I think that if we're going to clean up our noise ordinance for downtown, I want a vibrant downtown just like everybody else. I just don't know that we want a vibrant downtown at 1:30 in the morning with a lot of drunk people walking down the streets. That's not what we want. And that's what a lot of other cities have gone too far, and they're having to try to come back from that, is how do we pull back from going too far? I don't think this is a step that's going too far at all, because I think the cabaret licenses already allow them to go. There's just a conflict until midnight. What I don't want to see are businesses that have an ABC license for a restaurant to serve alcohol that essentially, for all intents and purposes, turn into a club scene at night. I think we need to enforce our regulations that are on the books, and I think we need to do that and make sure that businesses that get a cabaret license comply with those cabaret licenses. Otherwise, they lose the privilege because they make it harder for quality businesses to have the live entertainment, to have amplified music that makes their business more successful in a responsible manner. You know, downtown, if you go to downtown San Diego and you have a lot of the businesses that have live entertainment and music, they keep it on their property. They keep their doors closed, they keep their windows closed, and they don't blast it out into the community so people 4 blocks away can clearly hear it. And that's the problem that I've personally had and experienced with one business downtown that is going to ruin it for everybody else. So that needs to be addressed, I believe. So I personally, like I said, don't have a problem moving forward with modifications to the noise ordinance to merge them with the cabaret license time constraints.
So this will come back to us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so you have good direction, and will come back to us. So moving on to our last discussion item. D4 is our fiscal year 2012-13 fourth quarter financial report. That will be Dale Nielsen.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Presented to you this evening is the fourth quarter financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2013. First of all, for the 2013 fiscal year, general fund revenues from outside sources totaled about $60.7 million. This is up from a prior year amount of $60.3 million. When charges to other funds and transfers are added in, total general fund revenues were about $63.4 million. Property taxes were up over the prior year by about $907,000, although $446,000 of this was the result of a one-time payment from the County of San Diego back to the City of Vista for property tax administration fees that were incorrectly collected from the city in prior years. Sales tax revenue, the non-Prop L, just our regular sales tax revenue, came in at about $14.3 million for the year, which is an increase of $685,000, or about 5% over the prior year amount. Exhibit 2 on page 9 provides budgetary and actual revenue information for the general fund for the entire fiscal year. Revenue items at June 30th also include items that were earned as of June 30th but were not received until July or August. Exhibit 4 on page 15 presents similar information for general fund expenditures. For the year, total operating expenditures, including transfers to other funds, were about $62.7 million, or 84.6% of the authorized appropriations. 84.6%, I'm sorry. I'm pleased to report that once again, all general fund budget units came within their budgeted amounts, or under their budgeted amounts. After accounting for reserves and designations, there's about $3.8 million of available year-end general fund balance. The city manager has outlined his recommendations for the use of the year-end fund balance beginning on page 2 of the staff report. In summary, his recommendations are as follows. We wish to add about $1.998 million to the revenue shortfall reserve to bring it up to a level of 15%. This is a good step towards reaching the City Council's ultimate goal of having that emergency reserve at 20%. He is recommending that we set aside $1,250,000 for the 800 megahertz radio upgrade that will go towards the upfront cost of the enhanced system that will be due from the city near the end of the 14-15 fiscal year. And in addition, he is recommending about $584,000 be put aside to enhance the current year street improvement program. I need to point out that on Exhibit 6, on page 17 of the report, the exhibit that was included in the staff report was not the most up-to-date version that I provided. There's just one minor change. I believe the city manager has distributed the updated schedule to you, and what it simply does is down near the bottom, there's a line there that says available June 30th fund balance. It should read $584,000, and then the number up above under 800 megahertz upgrade should read $1,529,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Do I have any questions? I have no speakers. Councilmember Aguilera?
Just real quick, so on page D4, or 2 of 20. The 800 megahertz, it says 1250 there, right? Is that,
Yes, that is the correct amount.
that is correct. Okay. Thank you.
Do I have any other comments? Councilmember Rigby?
I was just going to say thank you for doing such a great job for us. And I would move that we receive and file this report.
Thank you.
Second?
I have a second? Okay, do we need to vote on this? I have a motion and a second.
Yes, the second item is an appropriation beyond the receive and file, so we would need a vote on that.
I will include that in my original motion.
And I'll second.
And your second? Okay. Okay, we'll see no further comments. Please cast your votes. That motion passes with Councilmember Campbell voting no. With that, we have no public hearings tonight, and so that takes us to oral communications, and we have several. We have 1, 2, 3, I have five. So each person has 3 minutes, and so we will start with Ann Barber. Welcome, Ann.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ann Barber, and I'm a social work student at USC. I'm getting my master's in social work. I've been working with the Dreams for Change Safe Parking Program for about 6 months, most recently in North County in the lot that was in Vista. In the last City Council meeting, there were quite a few residents who shared concerns about the program. Mostly their concerns were logistical, so they were about the neighborhood being able to accommodate parking. There were also quite a few comments that disparaged our clients, but those are not the reason that I'm here. I don't find those comments to be founded, but what I actually want to talk about is communities. So Vista is a community within North County, within San Diego County, within California. All of these communities are interlayered, and within the communities is a community of homeless people. There are homeless people who are what we call situationally homeless, which means that the economic circumstances of late have affected them to where they don't have homes, but they're not chronically homeless because they're still seeking to find housing. And some of these people still have cars, which is actually, it's an enormous challenge if you don't have steady income or if you have a disability to be able to maintain an asset like a car. Dreams for Change seeks to help people who are homeless but they're living in their cars. What we do is we provide them a safe place to park, but we also provide case management services. And so we help them look for jobs, we help them look for housing, we help them with financial planning. We provide a lot of services that these clients would go to government programs to seek. So that we provide a really valuable service in that we give our time. For me, I'm an intern, so it's totally free. But we're funded by grants, and we actually help the city and the community by serving our clients and helping them find permanent housing and the other things they need to be balanced residents. And we're successful. Actually, I'm really glad to say 3 minutes isn't enough time for me to share some of the success stories. But we have 3 lots in well, we have 2 lots currently, but we had 3 lots. And we've been doing this for about 3 years and have helped a lot of people who are no longer homeless. The response by the city to the neighbors' complaints influenced the shutdown of the lot in Vista. So there are now 25 families and a list of people who are on our waiting list who don't have a safe place to sleep at night. They were using our parking lot to get to sleep so that the next day they could go to work, because many are employed, to look for work and to look for housing. We had over 50% of our clients are disabled senior citizens, and we have veterans, and we have families with small children. I actually do not know where they are and where they'll sleep tonight.
Your time is up.
Oh, is it up? Okay. So I'd like to ask the city to have a more balanced approach and to work with Dreams for Change to help us find a more suitable place within the city of Vista. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Walsh. He'll be followed by Chase Witten.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I handed up some materials. Looks like they're going to come out to you now. Vista has participated with Sandag to create their energy roadmap, and one of the elements in there is using Energy Star, the Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool to track energy efficiency. So I'm here tonight just to commend you for picking this tool and then just tell you a little bit more about it. There's a particular legacy that we have down here. According to the EPA, they define San Diego as it's called a code-based statistical area. So Vista does fall within that area. So we're proud to know that the first Energy Star labeled building in the nation was the Ridge Haven building down in San Diego proper. The Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool is this robust platform where you can track your energy use, you can track your water use, you can also get a greenhouse gas emissions survey done. And you can, if your building qualifies for it, you can also get an energy efficiency performance rating, which is really important. The data set that's used for this is one of the largest data sets of its kind in the country. They are updating that data set, and that should be released in 2014. Losing. The state of California, through the California Energy Commission, has specifically mandated the use of Energy Star Portfolio Manager for compliance with their AB 1103 legislation, which is requiring energy use disclosure in commercial buildings. This may be of note to you if you've got any buildings that might be changing hands, properties that are changing hands, coming in or coming out. AB 1103 might be something you want to look at. The materials that you have in front of you show that the San Diego area, the greater regional metropolitan area, ranked 15th last year in the nation on the EPA's list of top 25 cities. We had 123 Energy Star labeled buildings on that list. So far, we were up from 19th the year before, so we're trending upward. So far this year, we have about 66 properties that are already in the hopper and Energy Star labeled. 3 of those are in Vista. You have a Target, a Mission Federal, and then a privately owned warehouse that have already applied and achieved that label. I'm watching the clock. I think that might wrap it up for me. So just thank you for picking this tool, and thank you for working with Sandag. And I'm just encouraging people to take a fresh look at Energy Star Portfolio Manager.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Our next speaker is Chase Witten, followed by Thomas, can't read this. Followed by Thomas Schnees. You can tell me when to get here.
Hi,
Hi, Chase.
My name's Chase Witten. I'm an engineer and I live in the Shadow Ridge area, and I'm here to express my concern for the stop sign that was approved on September 11th that's going up on Shadow Ridge and Live Oak. I believe ultimately that the stop sign was put up for good reason, but I think what we expect to see out of it is maybe a little counterintuitive, and I'm here to kind of present some findings behind that. And so many studies across the country have been performed to show how stop signs actually affect intersections similar to this. And some of these key points are always stops do not control speeds, nor do they reduce speeds on residential streets. Stop compliance is typically very poor where a sign is unwarranted. Unwarranted signs are usually defined by the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a national board to control traffic. Speeds actually increase at distances from the intersections as motorists make up that time. And in this particular intersection's case, approximately 9 out of 10 people approaching this intersection won't have anyone waiting on the Live Oaks side waiting to enter the intersections, which means people will tend to roll the stop sign. Safety of pedestrians at such unwarranted signs is also decreased, especially for children, as they expect the vehicles to stop, while many motorists have gotten in the habit of running the sign. Yet people feel safer when the sign is, yet people will feel safer, warranted or not. The stop signs also increase noise pollution in the vicinity of the intersection due to the acceleration of the cars, wind resistance, and all that. They also increase the operating costs based on vehicle costs for the individual people going through the stop sign. And so ultimately, stop signs do not significantly change the safety of an intersection, and in many cases, they increase the perceived safety by actually reducing safety. Considering the accident rate at this particular intersection has been 0 for the last 10 years, I much rather have seen or would like to see a more extensive report done on how this stop sign will actually affect the surrounding community, and highly recommend or request that the install of the stop sign that's going on tomorrow is delayed before, or at least until a report can be done to actually show how this can actually affect positive and negative of this intersection.
And your time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Thomas, is it Schenzler? How's that? Close? Thanks, Thomas.
Hi, good evening. My name is Thomas Schenzler, and I live in the Shadow Ridge area of Vista for the last 7 years. And I also want to talk about the stop signs that are going up on Shadow Ridge Drive and Live Oaks Road. And I want to focus on the economic impact that those new stop signs are going to have. I calculated that each stop will use up an additional amount of gas worth about 5.3 cents for each stop. While that sounds very little, if you multiply that by the number of cars that go along Shadow Ridge Drive every day, you multiply 5.3 cents by the 14,600 cars that go along that road every day, you get a total cost in additional gas of $742 each day, or $271,000 a year. Let's make another quick calculation per family. Let's say we have a family that does 4 round trips on that road each day. So 4 round trips means 8 additional stops. 8 additional stops times 5.3 cents, you come up with 42 cents per day, or $154 a year, just for that extra stop sign. Now let's look at the lost time and wages. So I estimate that each stop will cost an additional 10 seconds for each car that drives through. So we multiply those 10 seconds by the 14,600 cars that drive along Shadow Ridge Drive, and the total is 40 hours and 30 minutes. So if I multiply that by the average wage of $20 per hour, the total cost of lost wages is $811 per day, or $296,000 per year. So let's do the same calculation again per family. Assuming, again, 4 round trips on Shadow Ridge Drive, we have 8 stops. 8 stops times 10 seconds, that is 80 seconds delay. Comes out to 44.4 cents per day, or $162 per year. If I add that up together, I come up with a total economic impact of $567,000 per year, or per family with 4 round trips on that road a day, to $317 a year. So what I would like to ask the City Council is to consider having an economic and environmental impact study done to validate those costs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Giselle Schenzler.
Okay. I'm also here to talk about the stop sign, and Thomas is my husband, but Giselle Schenzler, we're part of the Shadow Ridge Homeowners Association, and we only learned about the stop sign when the sign came up that warned you that it's coming up in 2 weeks. And the question that came up was, well, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Because you hear speeding, it's the speeding on Shadow Ridge, but then you hear people want to turn left off of Live Oak. Okay, so if we're talking about speeding, Chase talked that a stop sign, and I think Councilwoman Rigby talked about it at the last meeting, a stop sign isn't going to address speed. Okay, so that's not going to solve that problem. If we're talking about the left turn lane, let's think about it. We've got over 1,300 people traveling on Shadow Ridge and less than 1,200 coming out or going into Live Oak. That's less than 10% of the people that we're trying to accommodate with this left turn. And that's assuming they're turning left. They may be turning right. We don't know. But so let's say out of the 9%, 5% want to turn left, but really they're forced to turn right. So it's a small percentage. You've got 14,000 people, 14,000, give or take, whichever report you're looking at. But that's not the majority of Vista. In the week and a half that that sign's been up, we've gotten almost 150 signatures against that stop sign. So the argument is, are we really representing Vista by putting that stop sign up? And we also wanted to talk a little bit about a stop sign in general on that intersection. Remember, in 2002, when you were allowed to make a left turn, we had 2 collisions. Since the right turn only sign has been put up, we've had 0. So there's no problem. There's nothing broken that we need to fix. And if it's the speeding, a stop sign's not going to do it. And so we're arguing that we're trying to accommodate a small number of Vista residents when a majority is against it. And when we talk about safety, adherence, you hit the nail on the head. People do not stop for a stop sign. If they know nobody's coming out of Live Oak, they're going to run it. Mayor Ritter, you hit it yesterday too. That visibility, they're not going to see it. Whether you put lights up or not put lights up, they're going to run it again. So we're basically telling people it's okay to turn left when we know the majority's not going to stop. And don't forget, the crosswalk, it's not going to be marked. But Sam mentioned it's going to be a legal crosswalk, which means you're technically allowed to walk down that 4-lane highway. And that's another danger. Imagine if you're a runner going down the street, assuming you're safe because there's a stop sign, and you got somebody running that stop sign on Shadow Ridge. So I think what we're trying to say is that it's probably not the best solution. I understand that there's speed, and I understand that there's people that want to make a left turn, a small majority. Oh, gotta go. But thank you. What we're asking is that we readdress this issue and put it back on the agenda before we waste the money to put in the stop sign.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know, we can't respond because it's not agendized, so okay. Okay. Okay, with that, we are on to our councilmember remarks. We're almost at the end of our meeting, and we'll start with Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know if it's, I'm just going to do it anyway. I wanted to make reference and have it into the record that I have received, as of yesterday, 113 emails in opposition to the stop sign and signatures on the petition, and I just wanted that in the record. I know we can't talk about it. The other thing was on the item C10 for the e-cigarette, is it, am I allowed to ask who put that on the agenda?
What was C10?
City prosecutor put it on the agenda.
Thank you. I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Coles?
Thank you. Well, we had an exciting celebration, birthday party at Bringle Terrace on Saturday for our 50th year since incorporation as the City of Vista. Two of the Bringle family were there, which, you know, that was kind of a real honor for me to see the people who, the heirs who donated that property to our city, which is a beautiful part of Vista. We also had an exciting downtown celebration of the Vista Unified School District's Festival of the Arts at the Krikorian. You talk about vitality in Vista. Saturday was very vital downtown Vista with all the art exhibits and activities that went on down there. And then finally, I serve on the board of the Regional Solid Waste Association that picks up all our trash and makes sure it gets done correctly. And Vista received a check in the amount of $40,320 at our last meeting for the purpose of us to educate and expand our waste management throughout our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Campbell.
A couple of issues that I wanted to bring up. So there's actually three. One is, I brought it up the last time briefly under council comments, and we've had the discussion, or I had the brief discussion with the city attorney about discussing items under council comments to bring it back, etc. And what I'd like to do is put an item on the agenda, not sure exactly what that item would be, but to have a discussion item brought back as to how we as the council in this city have council members put items on the agenda so we can do our jobs to have the ability to have discussion on particular items, because we can't have a discussion if I bring an item up right now. We as the council can't discuss it. So what I'd like to do is put a discussion item on the agenda so that we could discuss our policy in that regards, whether it takes something similar to what Escondido does, which is to have a sponsor of an item with a second individual on the council to put that on the agenda. Solana Beach, where it's one member puts an item on the agenda. I'd like to have that discussion. So before I move to the next items, I'd like to ask simply if there's a consensus on the council. I believe the last time Councilwoman Rigby supported this to just merely have that discussion so that every council member can have his or her opinions and ideas and issues that are important to that individual that the voters elected voted on by the council, or at least discussed by the council. So at this time I'd like to put that forward and ask for a consensus of the council to place that on our next agenda, just merely as a discussion to get feedback from the council at that time. So
It does any, how do we do that? Is there
I don't think that
is there
requires
second?
a vote, does it? So if there's
Is there a majority that would like to do that, change that?
well, it's not necessarily,
Discuss, I don't see that. I don't see anybody shaking their head. Yes, so I would say no. Councilmember Rigby, did you have something you want to say?
The discussion for having agenda items placed on the agenda, my comments were that I think if any one of us has something that's important to us, we would probably see that it's important to somebody in the community, and I think any one of us should have the opportunity to bring an item up for discussion and perhaps a vote. So that's something I would be able to revisit. I would not want to see the same item coming up over and over and over and over and over again, and unless something had changed. So that's where I'm at on that.
I think we asked this question before to all of us, but I don't see a consensus of saying yes. So that's.
I think I had a brief comment from one particular council member the last time. I don't know if you're.
What did I say? I don't remember. What?
Do you want to say something, Deputy Mayor Coles?
I think my feeling about this in the past was this has not been a problem in the 3 years I've been on the council, and I guess I would need to look into a little more of what the problem might consist of, and whether it needs to be, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and I'm not sure. I think there are a lot of ways individual council members can generate support to bring an item to the agenda. How does an item get placed on the agenda? Maybe let's have a little workshop
just like
on
this
that.
tonight. He just did. He asked, and we said yay or nay. That's how you do it.
I might add, we discussed policy 200-4 earlier, and the same holds true that if a majority of the council wishes to have an item on the agenda, then it'll come forward at a future date. And so under council comments, this is one of the avenues where you can get that majority.
Okay, so technically speaking, and I haven't ever worried about this issue, but technically speaking, if I had a burning desire to bring to the council's attention a tree planting in my neighborhood, under this item I could say, would the council support me in putting this on the agenda for the next meeting?
Yes.
And then I might get blank stares, or I might get applause. Is that right?
Correct.
So there is an opportunity to bring something to the agenda, provided, now does it have to be a majority of the other members that would bring it up?
Yeah. Has to be.
Okay.
May I make another comment? Just an observation that I do agree that out of respect for the council members who are elected by the people of the city, and that something that's important to us, like I said, that we probably would find would be important to somebody else, it hasn't gone unnoticed that it takes a consensus or more than one of us to try to get something on the agenda, but it didn't take but one person to get something on the agenda tonight, and that person was not an elected person. So I think that is something that needs to be discussed or revisited. Just my opinion.
Yeah. And I think that this is exactly what the issue that we're running into is this is becoming a discussion of an item that has to be on the agenda to discuss. And
Well,
that's what I'm trying to do. So
let me just ask then, are there 3 people that want to put this on the agenda for discussion?
I say yes, it needs to be
There's 2.
discussed for discussion.
Right. This is for discussion. It doesn't necessarily, may not even be voted on, but it's merely to put it on the agenda so that we can have a full and open discussion of what the issues are, with why I brought this up, discussion of maybe the majority of the council doesn't see a need to change
Cody.
it. So.
Okay, I think you don't have the support.
Just to clarify, somebody got something on the agenda?
The city attorney put the e-cigarette item on the agenda. That was why I asked that question.
And I might clarify, as city manager or as city attorney, we do things for the operations of the city
Right.
that we see are in the best interest of the city, and that's why you've hired us to do that.
Right, and I appreciate that, and I don't actually have a problem with that. I appreciate you and trust you very much. But we're elected officials, and we have ideas, and we have things that we want to bring to the city for a vote. We want to hear the people's opinions on these things. And I'm thinking if one person on city staff can bring something before the city council, I should think out of respect for our colleagues, one person should be able to say, I'd really like to discuss this and see where it goes. And because of the Brown Act, we can't discuss things unless we're sitting up here in front of everybody in an open and public forum, which is fine as well. I just think we need to have that opportunity. And even if I have something that is a burning desire for my tree to be planted somewhere, and I know that y'all are going to say no, I think out of respect for myself and for the people, I should have the opportunity to discuss it and bring it up for a public vote. That's
Okay, we're actually discussing something that that you don't have the support to move forward on, it looks like.
Could I just clarify something again, because I maybe this is getting that discussion done through oral comments. I have a very supportive position on the outdoor dining smoking, but if there aren't a majority of the people, of the council people, who are willing to support that along with me, it just encumbers our agenda. That's why I think if there's I don't want to have 2 people be able to burden an agenda that's going to go nowhere. And I think that just ends up complicating our agenda, lengthening it, and taking time out of other productive efforts that we need to be doing while we're here. So I think in oral comments, if I bring up something that excites 2 other people, it'll be on the agenda. So that's how I feel about it.
Okay.
So moving on to the next item that I'm requesting to come back to the agenda. The City of Carlsbad recently adopted this, the City of San Diego did, and I think there's a potential issue for this particular type of business to move to the City of Vista that I don't think the community supports, which are stores that sell cats and dogs, primarily dogs that come from puppy mill breeders that are dogs or puppies that are raised in inhumane conditions. City of Carlsbad adopted it, one of our neighboring cities, the City of San Diego did, and that business moved from the City of San Diego to the City of Oceanside. If the City of Oceanside were to ban the sales, they might jump over to the City of Vista. So I'd like city staff to investigate this and bring an ordinance similar to the City of San Diego's back for discussion here in the City of Vista to look at making sure that we don't have businesses that are selling dogs that are raised in inhumane conditions from puppy mills.
So does anyone want to agendize that? I don't see the support on that either. Councilor Campbell?
If I saw this as an imminent possibility, I would want to weigh in on it. I'm not sure if this is imminent. Have there been any applications or efforts to bring this type of business into our community? And if there were, could we at that time take it up as a discussion? How should that work out?
At this time, we have not had any applications for breeders or stores to sell dogs or cats within Vista.
If somebody were to make an application, would we be able to do something to address that issue before they actually started up business?
Upon somebody filing an application, there would be time to address the issue with council. I'd leave it up to the city attorney as to whether there would be allowed to be a moratorium or something of that in place.
Probably approach it with a moratorium.
If that, I would want to be alerted if we get an application like that, because I would want to be able to address that such an application at this level.
But you don't want it agendized. That's the question, is do we want it agendized?
I'm not ready to agendize it. No.
Okay.
Okay. With that, I'd just like to add the following comment to the public that, you know, people in the community ask why the Vista City Council just clips through its meetings in 30 minutes, and I'll tell you exactly why. It's because nothing controversial, hardly ever anything controversial, comes to the public's view. It's all done behind the scenes. So if you want to look at what the City of Vista does, things don't come to the council to be voted on because, as you see here tonight, it takes a majority of the council to put an item on the agenda to be discussed. So they don't want to vote no on it, so they don't even put it on the agenda. So make sure you tell your friends and neighbors that that's why Vista has a council that seemingly does everything smooth as can be compared to our neighboring cities, but it's really just because everything keeps glossed over behind the scenes.
Councilmember Aguilera.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to talk about last Saturday. It was a fun day down at the Bringle Terrace Park, and you know, it was our 50th birthday. I want to thank staff for the hard work they put in, and I also wanted to thank some of the vendors that were down there. We had some of our local businesses providing food to the community. If you missed it, you missed a good party. We had music, dancing, so it was fun. And we had a beautiful day. I think the temperature was had to be 75 degrees or something. It was warm. And I also wanted to make note that Alta Vista Gardens had their fall festival 2 weeks ago, and that was a great event. It was well attended. The Alta Vista Gardens is doing a great job of developing a botanical gardens here in Vista. If you haven't had a chance to go to that, it's on top of Bringle Terrace Park. They just asked for a donation to enter. They have some beautiful specimens up there, and every year they do a fall festival, and it's a great event, and it's usually almost always a kid-friendly event as well. So that's it. Thank
They
you.
all made scarecrows up there. They have really very cute scarecrows, and they have a lot of really cool artwork and plants up there. It's beautiful. Everybody that hasn't been there should go there and visit. And so I just wanted to say one thing is that for the people out there, we don't do anything behind the scenes, and the reason we don't have controversial issues is because we don't create a problem when there isn't one usually. So I think that we're doing a great job as a city, running our city, and our city is doing great. So I would like to comment too on a 50th anniversary because that was a fun event on Saturday, and I'd like to thank all the community organizations who participated, and especially the groups that provided the kids' activities. There are lots of jumpies and kids' activities going on, and I actually learned how to use a fire extinguisher, which I never knew how to do that before, because the fire department, the explorers had the little fire thing there, and they put the fire on, and then they let you try to put it out with your fire extinguisher. So I thought that was very interesting. We appreciate the time of the staff. We have a lot of staff that worked the event all day. They were there, and also thank you to the Vista Fire Department Honor Guard for presenting the colors, and to the Bringle family that donated Bringle Terrace to us. The father and the son. The grandfather donated it, but the father and the son were both there. So it was nice to meet them and to thank them for our beautiful park. Everybody's invited to join the Vista Village Association's downtown Halloween events on October 30th and 31st. So check out vvba.org for more information. And because of the canceled meeting, we missed the Tootsie Roll Drive this year. So I wanted to mention to the Knights of Columbus, the Francis P. Matthews Council, 3589. We'd like to thank the city. They would like to thank the City Council for their proclamation and recognition to the campaign to help the people with intellectual disabilities, which was held last week, October 18th through 20th. And I kind of miss eating all those Tootsie Rolls. We used to always get a few of those here. And finally, it's with sadness that I mention a well-respected community member passed away on October 1st. Today was Les Jantz, and he will be so missed in the community. He did a lot of things for this community. If you look along Thibodeau Road, he was instrumental in doing the plantings along there. He served on our Encino wastewater plant for board of directors for many years, and he'll be very missed. He was a well-respected person in the community. And with that, I will turn it over to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to echo the council's comments on the 50th anniversary celebration on Saturday, and to thank the city team that was spearheaded by Andrea McCullough, our communications officer, and mention a few of the people that donated their time, not only before the event, but all day at the event. And that was Bill Fortmuller, Rob Anderson, Dan Kays, Ken Shaw, Rod Kruger, Jeff Hahn, Chuck Christ and his entire family, and Rachel Beld, and obviously Andrea McCullough, who spearheaded the event. So she did a great job. And since our last meeting, I just wanted to update you on a couple projects that are going on or have been recently completed throughout town. And one is the North Avenue median work. It's begun, and it should be done in the next 2 weeks, which is to the east side of North, off of North Melrose. We have the Vista Village median work that's under construction. This is night work, and it'll be complete in November, which will add irrigation to the medians there with the plantings and more landscaping. Also, the West Vista Way asphalt has started. So along West Vista Way from Emerald to the city limits, where Caltrans had recently put in the barrier, we had gravel on a 3-foot section, so we're paving the entire section, so that should be done this week. And last month, the right turn on South Melrose to Faraday was completed. So just wanted to give you an update.
Super. City Attorney, Daryl Piper.
I have nothing further this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Our Assistant City Clerk down there. Nothing, Kathy? Okay, with that, well, it says, I was going to say adjourn at 10:55 is what it says on my screen. However, my watch says it's like about 10 to 8. So we are adjourned with that. I was looking at that, and I was like, is it really that late?
Got late.